Hello everyone, welcome to the Pushing Horizon podcast. This is the host Ash. Today's episode is about real strength, the kind that doesn't show up on paper, but shows up when life hits hard. You are about to hear from someone who has done 22 ultras and somehow keeps finding another gear. And the wild part is, she ran 3 ultras while pregnant. That alone tells you what kind of person she is. Grit, resilience, and a mindset built through years of carrying heavy things, long before she even toured a start line. This conversation goes past running. We talk about grief, family, trauma, motherhood, identity, DNFs, rebuilding, and what it means to keep going when your world feels chaotic. We talk about how running becomes a way to survive, a way to process, and a way to feel human again. And honestly, I relate to a lot of her story, the hard childhood, the coping, the way the mile becomes therapy when nothing else makes sense. It's raw, it's honest, and it's the kind of story that reminds you why people run far in the first place. So let's get right into it, and please let me introduce to our guest today. Here is Melissa. Hey Melissa, welcome to the podcast. I know we have been going back and forth for such a long time to get this done, and I'm glad that now it is done and we are here.
Awesome. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. I've known you briefly, right? So I just knew you through Instagram and just talking to you back and forth. Can you please give a quick introduction on who is Melissa?
Yeah, so I currently reside in Michigan. I just moved here about 3 months ago with my family. So with my husband, we've been together for since high school, so like 20 plus years. I have a daughter that will be 2 in a couple weeks. We lived in Chicago for, man, a decade. And previous to that, lived in Wisconsin. I got into running when I was in high school and I've just kind of grown with it when I'm not doing that. We're really big into outdoors, so I'm an avid traveler, love to travel around the US, national parks, but also across the world. Did a big trip to Malaysia this year and actually just got back from Banff, Canada. Just turned 40, so navigating middle life. And I actually just left my career of 10 years in the recruiting staffing industry and we'll be transitioning to something different. But that's kind of me in a nutshell. Nothing, um, you know, super extraordinary, just an ordinary person trying to do big things.
Definitely big things like running ultra marathons,
Yeah.
right? So you said you were running from when you were kid, like so. When did this got obsession got into ultra running? Because I would say obsession because running marathons is one thing, but then you have done 22 ultra marathons. So when did this obsession got into you, and when did you transition from marathons or from half marathon to running these incredible distances?
Yeah. So I had mentioned I started running in high school, and really that was, I started with just wanting to try something, be out in nature, and find a way to just clear my head. When you're young, you've got a lot of things going on, but also, too, I didn't necessarily have the most stable home life. And for me, it was so beneficial to just go out into the woods or the trail and just clear my head. Went to college and, kind of ran here and there, but then decided like my last year to do a half marathon. Really enjoyed it, and then kind of put things on the back burner. Did my first half or my first marathon in 2012, and was just doing Chicago Marathon. So I would just do Chicago Marathon every year, and that was it. That was my long run. But when my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2018, there was just a switch that flipped. One, something it can happen in your brain, and I don't know if this is with everybody, but for me, it was like my brain was in constant playback. So I constantly just had flashbacks all the time. And I was using distance running as a way to cope. And previous to my mom getting diagnosed in 2015, my dad had brain cancer. So I used at that time, it was CrossFit and fitness. It was the way that kept me sane. It was a way for me to like burn stress in a positive way. And in my mind, I was doing all this research into cancer, into like what the makeup of a child is versus like what they get from their parents. And a lot of the research showed that your mitochondrial DNA came from your mother. So, powerhouse of all of your cells. So in my mind, like if I can run 50 miles, there's no way that my mom couldn't survive breast cancer. Like cuz it just wouldn't make sense. Was that a healthy coping mechanism? Maybe not. Maybe it wasn't rational. So I signed up for it was Tunnel Hill 50. I did that. I remember 35 miles of it. 15, I was struggling with hypothermia, mainly because I was not prepared. I hadn't done anything over a marathon before. At a marathon, you have water stations every mile. They give you water. I never really worked on fueling like I was supposed to. I didn't do a lot of research into what I was actually going to do. Just like, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to push hard. And my mom's doing harder things than I am. So I use that as the carrot. My water bladder froze. I couldn't get water for like the last 10 miles unless it was aid station water. I was trying to hold coffee, but I was shaking so badly. I couldn't even get that in. And so I kind of remember finishing a little bit. I just remember being brought into this warming room with all of these people. And tunnel, you can do the 50 or there's 100, and it's just 2 loops. And so there was a lot of people that were, deciding, hey, I'm good. But they had warming blankets, and I told my husband, I'm like, take a picture of this moment. Remind me, because I'm never going to do this again. Never want to do this again. Never want to be in this level of pain. So I got that buckle and I gave it to my mom. I said, here, this is your buckle. And she's like, I don't want to keep your buckle. I'm like, well, when you beat this, give it back to me. But for now, keep the buckle. She did not make it. And so what started as like, hey, this is just like a one-off thing, turned into how I learned to navigate grief. And there is something that I have found with running extensively long. A marathon doesn't do it for me. It has to be something where it's a point where I'm so exhausted, I don't have conscious control of controlling thoughts, if that makes sense. It sounds very, very bizarre, but I'm able to tap into things that maybe I haven't thought about before. I feel my mom when I'm out in very, very long runs. So I'm talking at anything over like 40 miles, 50 miles. After that happened, I was using that as a way to grieve. And the ultra running community is filled with a lot of people that have overcome a lot of very big things, whether it's drug addiction, whether it's grief, whether it's abuse, all of these things. And I really found a home in that community, which is what continued to keep me coming back. Now, I'll say the caveat that I don't think that this is a replacement for therapy. I think we all we all benefit from that, but there's a different level of I was very taught at a very, very young age to be strong and to have walls up all the time. That was, and part of it was a trauma response from just my abusive upbringing was you're strong, don't tell anyone that you're dealing with things. So when I run really far, you have to become weak. You have like there's parts where you are so broken down that you have to depend on people. You're at an aid station, someone's helping you change shoes, someone's giving you words of encouragement. You're in a very vulnerable position that I never really allowed myself to be previous to ultra running. So it's just been very transformative, and it has continued to keep me coming back. So I did Hennepin about a year after my mom had passed away, and that was my 50. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to keep going. And when my mom passed away, there was a lot of things in my family that had gone on. We cut my father out of my life because he was very abusive to my mom. He had gotten remarried. There was so much trauma, and I was using that to, I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep running. Keep running. And I had found out that he had passed away a couple years after my mom. So I lost both parents within 3 years. And it was my last 100 that I've done. I was with my husband, and it was probably mile 55. That same thing where, you're just like, you're vulnerable, like your mind is going. And I realized in that moment, like I was at the position to be able to forgive my father. So would never have happened if I wasn't running in the middle of the night, completely depleted after running in the heat. But it's something that's hard to describe when you're running that far. But for those that have done it, I think that they can understand, especially if you've gone through really, really hard things and grief. It's controlled suffering. You get to control that suffering. And that's the only time in life that you really get to.
Yes, I can relate to some of it, what you just said, and it is so true that some of us use it the way to cope with a lot of things that are happening. For me too, it's in some ways it's same thing I do too. It's I have a strange childhood. My alcohol and fighting mom and dad and all those sort of things. So it's
Mhm.
being such a young kid, and I was the oldest one, so I had to be in the middle, right? When they're fighting, it's so hard. Like you cannot get out of it, and there has always this fear that throughout my childhood was, what kind of dad am I gonna see today? I
Mhm.
mean, he has never beat us, right? So he never lay hand on us or anything. So he's been in that way. He's been good, but they used to fight a lot, and every night I would be like, what kind of dad we're gonna get today? Is it gonna be the one that is drunk and there will be a fight and I have to go and separate both of them, or will it be this nice dad who is happy and who is not drunk at home? So and it's been, and I never knew this. Like it's been inside me, and I started doing therapy, and then it all came out, and then like it's strange thing, and I use all of this whatever is inside me. I've been through so many things, abused, molested, all this kind of thing. So it's built all inside me, and I use it to just when I'm running. It's just like it's just me and my time. And I did my first ultra last month,
Congrats.
and oh my god, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I cried at 55 kilometers. I was like, I could not control, and I was so happy because I've been always big, fat, and I thought I could never do such thing. And when I finished it, it was just like, wow, oh my god, I cannot believe it. And lesson learned: always choose flat for the first ultra marathon. It was 1,000 meter elevation, and it was so technical. And I was like, all the locals was like running like it is not a big deal. And me living in Berlin, there is not a lot of hill. I thought I saw hill, and no, I never even seen a bottom of hill. And it was like, God, it was hard. It was brutal, but I didn't quit. So I thought of quitting. And like when I talk to so many folks in the podcast, right, and I've been learning every time, like all the mental strength and how to get over something, like mini
Mhm.
goals. And same thing happened when my quad. I saw downhill, and then this marathon mentality, like I need to go bump this, and then I'm gonna run fast as I can. And
Yeah.
biggest mistake. Yeah, never do that. So yeah, it's we all. I still use this in some way to overcome my grief, trauma, or whatever. But since I've done therapy, it has helped me a lot. So I kind of
Mhm.
relate to what you were saying, and I
Mhm.
cannot imagine like what you went through, because I don't know how would I react if something happened to my mom, or to process that, because she's still here. I'm 42, so yeah, I cannot think of that day, like what will happen or how will I process things. So I'm glad you're okay now and you've been able to run and process and go through everything in your life.
It's a journey. It's a
And
journey. And I think too, when you mentioned like the ultra was the hardest thing you did, it wasn't. It felt like it in the moment, but everything that you had overcome in your life, like if you think about it that way, like those are days at a time where you're like, I'm not sure what kind of dad is going to come home. I echo that. I was also the oldest, or I am the oldest. My dad didn't have an alcohol excuse. So that was where it was always very tricky. My dad was not an alcoholic. He didn't drink to church. So that's a, a whole nother layer of the onion of, especially here in America right now, what's going on with like Christian nationalism and people that are
oh, yeah.
Christians. From the outside, my family look like the picket fence middle income family, but inside the doors was very different. And God was used a lot under the hand of abuse. But so yeah, to your point, I think physically it was probably the hardest thing you ever went through. But mentally, you had all those things in the back of your head and those experiences, you probably just didn't realize you were tapping into them at the moment.
Yes, That is true. Physically hardest, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's yeah. I remember like talking to my therapist and going back to that moment when we were kid, and I was like, I couldn't stop crying because it was so hard, because I feel sorry for that kid right now, it's I was 15, not even 15, 14, 15 maybe. And like, who would do that? Like, you have to be in between your parents and like separate them physically, right? I had to be, and they both would fight, and it's just like, oh my god, it was, yeah, if I yeah, it's one of the hardest thing was growing up and reliving that moment and all the things that has happened, and it's so hard. It's like, oh my god, I can't believe I went through all of that. And you were right, mentally those were probably much worse,
Mm-hmm.
because and it turned out right. We didn't do so bad, but yeah, it's if probably things were better, then might be could have done so many things, because that those are so much of a psychological issues, like
Mm-hmm.
for a for a teenager to go through that, and it's just like it's too much pressure, like, and I was never good at studies too.
Yeah. Well, it might be just because of your home life. It might not have been
Yeah,
that you weren't good at it. It was probably because you had so much chaos going on at home that it was very hard for you to concentrate. They've actually done studies on the gray matter of your brain in kids that go through like good homes where there isn't trauma, and then go through traumatic events or abusive, and the gray matter changes. So if you think about too, like being able to concentrate, you're in this fight or flight response all the time as a kid, as you're growing and as your brain is developing. So it's really hard to like be able to be good at studying when you're literally
yeah,
fighting
yeah,
for life back at home.
yeah. It's, and I have ADHD too, so that kind
Mhm.
of probably some of it. But yeah, it's not been hard. But yeah, to your point, yes, I do agree. Physically, probably the hardest, but yeah, mentally, I probably seen worse than
Mhm.
that. And talking about the mental shift, right? So you do 50Ks. I did 50Ks.
Yeah.
It was hard, and but you have done longer distances. You have done 100 milers. So in your view, what's the mental shift when you do the 50Ks and then the 100 milers?
So honestly, the way that I kind of take it is, when you're running a 50K, it gets hard and it gets painful, right? And then you're done. And usually like the pain cave can shift depending for you where it wasn't flat and there's roots and all that. I mean, the pain cave could have happened at mile 5 versus 25. The pain doesn't change. So whatever your peak pain was that you had in your 50K, it's going to be pretty much the same in 100 or 100K. The thing that changes, though, that I have noticed and that kind of keeps me hanging on when things get really, really sufferable, I never speak to it. I've had people even mention it to me and my crew, my pacers. They're like, they'll ask me, like, how are you doing? How are you doing? And I'm like, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm doing fine. I will never say that what's actually going on, which is usually this sucks. Or I'm in pain, because I don't want to speak to it, because the second that you say it, you hear it. And then you start to believe it and you start to focus on it. And then all you're focusing on is the discomfort that you're in. And you're not giving yourself an opportunity to start to have a high. So it really is like life in a day, day and a half, where you have highs and lows. I've had my first completed 100. My first one I DNF'd, I made it to the 100K, and that was it. When I went out for my second attempt, I got to mile 70, and from 50 to like 65, my stomach was upside down. I couldn't eat anything. I was in a really bad spot. But throughout the whole day, I was very high spirits because I'm like, I'm gonna get this 100 done finally. And chasing your first one, there's a different level of you want this. I got to 70. I had a little bit of food. I put my feet up for maybe 10 minutes. My husband was pacing me for like 50 miles of this, and he's like, I'm hungry and I need a break. So I'm like, I'll let my pacer sit. But we got up And I felt like I had never run all day. It was like I got fresh legs at mile 70. And I'm like, we're running. So we started running and passing people throughout the night, and I felt great. And then I hit another wall. And then you go through it, and you're like, well, wait, I can go get new legs. I just have to go to the next aid station. The next aid station, like, I'm gonna feel better. So that's where it really shifts. Now, some people I've talked to, um, there's a woman I know through the 10 Drunk Miles community, and I asked her because she did Cocodona. I'm like, that's huge. It's 250 miles. Like, what is that like? Because in my mind, 100, high, low, all day. She's like, I never had a low moment. And for me, was shocking. Shocking. I haven't had 100 yet where I haven't had a low. And so in those low moments, so kind of like I had mentioned to you, is my brain goes somewhere else when that happens. I try to shut it down. I try to think of anything else, wherever else it might be, whether it's on a beach. I'm not really a beach person, but it's relaxing in that moment, or in a mountain, anywhere else. I'm like, this time will go by quickly. Life goes by quickly. Where was I at the beginning of the day? I'm like, okay, well, I was not even at the start line, and that was 8 hours ago. That went by really quickly. So where am I going to be in 8 hours? I'm like, okay. So it's a way to just like mentally distract yourself of like, time's going to go by quickly. This pain will go away, whether it's at the finish line or if it's at the next aid station where your body will shift. So that's really helped. And then the other thing too of just kind of like looking back and like, this is not the hardest thing I've done. This hurts. This is discomfort. This doesn't feel good. But I get to control this. I get to choose to be in this right now. So I will force myself to express gratitude when I'm in pain. Whether it's like when my pacer asks, when I have one, how I'm feeling, or if it's just myself. Like, this is great. I am so blessed to be able to be out here. I'm so blessed to be able to use my legs right now, to be able to carry myself as far as I'm carrying it. Or, hey, look, the sun's going to come up soon. It's going to be a beautiful sunrise. Things of that nature. Because when you start to talk about it and just that's what you're focusing on now. So that, like, you don't focus on the pain anymore, and it's just a different state, but only you can do that, and it's a complete mental game. But just recognizing from, like, for me, 35 to 100, pain doesn't get any worse. So you're like, it's almost like a race for me to get to that level of pain, because I'm like, well, we're still early. I feel good. This is still early. Okay, here, pain starts. So this is when the race starts. And okay, like, I will get over this. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes things happen. I had food poisoning trying to do my first 100K back, and that was pain from mile 6 until I had to pull the plug at 35 because the sweepers caught me. But that was food poisoning. There's nothing that I mean, I started to feel a little bit better, but sometimes things happen, and that is what it is. But I'm looking back on that too, even with gratitude. I got a chance, an opportunity to know that I could suffer through food poisoning for 35 miles. I wouldn't have known unless I kept moving forward.
That is a unique perspective because, like, I talk to so many people from here, and most of them, if there is a pain, then they acknowledge it,
Mhm.
and then they said, "I know you are here, and I see you, but I gotta keep going." So, I think that has been the mindset for a lot of runners, and you are totally different. You are like, if the pain is here, then you're like, I don't hear it, I don't see it, I don't feel it. So that is totally different. And I talked to folks who did Kokorona, and it's six of them, and everyone has their own story. Like, if you listen to all the 6 episodes, it's so many highs and lows, so many highs and lows. Cody ran with like a screwed up quad since 30, like 100 mile, I think 150, or like from 30 mile, I think. He ran a lot of distance with like a screwed up quad because there is a lot of words, and I think that's the issue. If you're not trained for the birds, then I think that's what, same with me too. I've never done that much of a distance, and the elevation really screws you up.
Hmm.
So on that note, are you looking to do Cocodona 250 or some other distances, as you have been
Yeah.
already looking to get some infos on it?
I mean, a 200 has been on like the back of my mind for a while. I'll say like it completely shifted once I got pregnant and had my daughter. Like you're just like everything, your perspective changes. I used ultras before of a way to like cope with a lot of darkness in my life. And for the first time in my life, I can say that it's not darkness. It's been like this euphoria of just my daughter. And so I have found it a little bit more challenging in these bigger distances to go into the dark place because I'm like, well, I've spent my whole life here. Like, I'm excited on this other end, so it's different because it's like I want to be a part of the community. I want to push myself, so the motivation is a little bit different. So I don't know what I would use to like as my fuel mentally for those long runs, but also too, it's really challenging with the toddler. From my husband does all my crewing, so he crews with my daughter, and when she was really little it was a little bit easier because you just carry her aid station to
Yeah.
aid station. I was still nursing at the time, so wait, that kind of had to be done. Now she wants to move. So
Okay.
I don't know how that would work for 250 miles. I'd probably have to have like a team. And I'm like I had mentioned before, I'm not someone that's really good at asking people for help. So I would say Cocodona is probably the biggest one on my list, but I'd probably want to do a 200 first. I went to Tahoe on
Oh, yeah.
vacation and I thought, oh, this is really beautiful. So, but I would definitely want to spend some time out west, just really, really training. A 200 is very different than a 100 in the sense of, at least people I've talked to. Some people are like, it's easier. I'm like, I don't know how. It's longer, but you're kind of breaking it up. So you have to learn how to manage throughout a week versus, 36 hours. But yeah, I think it would be the most amazing way to see an area, personally. I wouldn't want to just like do a loop in a parking lot or some of these timed ones. I'd want to, go somewhere where I haven't seen.
Yeah, it's there's Bigfoot too. That's
Hmm.
200.
Yep.
And there is a new one, Mammoth, because
Hmm.
I talked to Katie Esmuth, and then she was talking about that on the last podcast. She was like, "Oh," she asked me, "What do you want to do if you have to pick one race when you come to US? What do you want to do?" And I said Cocodona,
Hmm.
and and then she said, "Oh, we're doing this 200 miles here, so you do Cocodona and you do that this after that." So she's like, "Okay." But there is not a lot of races coming through. But like you said, the it all the people I talk to, the constant message has been is that even things go wrong on the longer multi-day events, there is still chance to fix it. So compared to the 50Ks, right, there is not really a lot of time. But if you're on 200, that it's probably 2 days, 3 days. So it
Hmm.
has more chance where you can fix things. If something doesn't work, then you can go and work it out. So I think that has been the major differences I found out so far. And
Hmm.
it's way out of my league right now because I just did 56K, but
I mean, to be honest, like it's some of it there. I know some people will like, do a 100K before you do a 100, but I know people that have jumped right in. And it's really just mental fortitude at some of that stuff. And like you mentioned, you have time to fix it. Your feet go south. I think for everybody, unless you're someone that has run an extensive amount, you're kind of learning in the moment. And I've done three, I've attempted five. Each one, I'm like, it doesn't matter what experience I've had previous, something comes up that you've not known before. And it's not until you're in it that you're like, okay, well, now I've learned to deal with it for my next one and the next one. So it's kind of like learning the craft as you're in it. Best way to learn is just try and do it.
definitely. But I made plans for 2028.
Okay.
Coconut is 2028, but I'm doing a Backyard Ultra. I'm organizing a Backyard Ultra
Okay.
in November. So I want to do 70 to 80K because next year I'm planning to do 100K and then 160 if possible. I don't know if it is too much of a jump, but my goal is to do 160 by next year. So, but then again, I think of like I see all of you, right? You do this awesome thing and you look, and I feel like, oh my god, I'm so far behind. And my I talk, so Matt is coming onto the podcast, and And she saw like, did that guy, my girlfriend, she asked me, did that guy run on snow? And I said yes. And she was like, whoa. And I remember like, God, yeah, everybody is so rad, so bad. I said, running 100 mile, 200 miles, it's not easy. And like I have a lot of work to do. And that has been my motivation is like, what can I do? And how can I improve? I know I need to work on strengthening a lot because that has been one of the weakest link for me is to get that strengthening going. And I made promise to myself that I'm going to work out every day, go to the gym at least 3 times. So I'm trying to make this habit. I know it's hard for 3 weeks, but then after that it's going to be easy. But I'm trying to make myself to create this habit because there are goals, and if I don't work hard, then those goals won't be achieved. So I'm trying to be focused and trying to do. But then today it was raining, but I did ellipticals at home, so that counts.
I mean, you race and you might have rain. It might be good to train in
Yeah,
it.
it's yeah, it's. But I'm getting there. I used to be so good at this. Like if I like I didn't eat ice cream for a year or carb, and I can like I had this mindset where if I put on it, then I could do like if I don't want to eat ice cream, then I can. I had this thing in me to say no to the ice cream, but I don't know what has happened. But there is this something missing. That's what I've been finding out myself that there is so much thing going on in my life. I moved to Berlin. I lived in US for 14 years or something
Oh,
like
wow.
that, and then and I moved here all of a sudden in 2023, and my life is going through these changes, and I am trying to find this thing that I can hold on to and make it my centerpiece. Before I could do that, but right now there is so much thing happening and I cannot always keep focus, and my ADHD is all over the place. It's just like what I want to do, what I want to do, what I want to do. So yeah, I think that is I've said it a few times. So I need to make this goal, and hopefully this will help. So and if I didn't do this podcast, and I don't think I would have ever done this first ultra race, because looking at all of you, what you have done, and how we have gone through the low point, the hard point, like, and how we overcame everything, right? And that has given me this strength to get out and be on these completely unknown places, because I've done marathons, but this was 14 kilometer more than a marathon, and I didn't know what the pain was, and I didn't know how hard it would get. And at least now I have some ideas like how much is it 1,000 elevation, and I'm never going to forget that because that is a lot.
I think it's important
And
to realize that like your life has chapters and we can only be pulled in so many directions at once and something will have to give. So, transitioning to a move across the country, like that's going to take a lot of mental time away from you. It's not even just physical, it's just like mentally that weighs on you. So, I would give yourself some grace on that. I would give yourself some grace. I would just continue to like have a carrot to chase because I think that would help.
yeah, well, hopefully that's the goal. I know I made goals. I wanted to do this after talking to. I thought of myself, what the hell am I doing? So I need to push myself. So I did this 56K, and I made some plans. So I think I need to get into this habit where, because I went to gym when whether it was snowing in December or something like that. So I need to get into this mental focus where I am just like, okay, I need to do it. So
Mhm.
hopefully this is it. I promised myself I'll do it, and I know that those goals are not gonna be done by themselves. So I need to get out. I think it's a problem with everybody, right? So comfort is so nice. It's warm bed is nice, and who wants to wake up in the morning and get out of it? So we all need to see what other people are doing and get inspired from me, like
Mhm.
not from me, from all of the people. I think that's the reason I'm doing it. Everybody's running, like there was UTMB, and everybody's running so long for so much time, and looking at that and how they are going and crossing it, and it's just like, okay, I can take something from that, and I need to do it. I need to do it so I can be better. I think that's the goal, is to be better than yesterday.
Mhm. No, for sure. And I
And
think whatever you surround yourself with tends to be where you start to achieve.
in that note, right? So we talk about this. So what was that race that changed you, and you saw yourself as a runner while you are going through with in all of your journey so far?
Ooh, that's a hard one, man. So, I mean, Tunnel Hill was my first 50, my first true ultra. I made the jump. I completely skipped a 50K. There was definitely a level after that of like, oh wait, I'm harder to kill. Like, I'm stronger than I thought I was, but it just kind of gave me confidence to want the taste of that again. And so I went back and I did Hennepin 50. My husband wanted to do his first ultra and of course first 50. Um and that day, man, it stormed from 32 until we finished. We were soaked. We traded off crying. It was but even my husband after that was like, I'm not a runner. I do these things. So it's hard to pinpoint. It really is because I hallucinated at Tunnel Hill. I had a little bit of hallucinations at Hennepin. I would say the two hardest that I've ever done was Zion 100K, which was my first 100K. And it was on the outskirts of Zion National Park. And I had run one other race out west before in my entire life. I was woefully, completely in over my head. I'm like, I strength trained because of just my years of, CrossFitting. And so I was still CrossFitting. I was doing a lot of step ups, but we don't have like mountains or mesas in Illinois. And I wasn't doing a whole lot of trail running like I should have been. I was just kind of going to the gym and then running long on the treadmill, doing a little bit of elevation gain. That race, man, it was hotter than it was supposed to be. I didn't know if I was going to survive. Honestly, like, I know that sounds really dramatic, but in the beginning, I was like, I couldn't eat anything from like mile 15 on. Um, I was so depleted. I was able to pick up a pacer at the marathon mark, and that really saved me. So my husband paced me for like 40 miles of this. And there was a friend that I met up with. We ran for the first like 50K-ish, a little less than that. But I remember walking down just this dirt road in the desert. There's people puking everywhere. People are dropping left and right because it's so hot. And I thought that I was seeing things because there's this guy running down the street with a popsicle and he looked like Jesus. And I'm like, this is it. I'm so depleted in my electrolytes. Like, this is how I go. Or at least I'm going in an ambulance because there's no way I'm finishing this race. And no, it was real. It was this nice family that just stopped on the road with their camper handing out popsicles. And like that gave me a little bit of a boost. And then we turned into like, ironically, a golf course. I don't know how in a desert, but there was a guy that had just like this bucket of ice from golfing all day. And he's like, hey, do you want some ice for your hat? I'm like, yes, please. And then he had all this beer and he's like, do you want a beer? And I'm not someone that really drinks beer often, but it just sounded really good at the time. And I'm like, yes, I will try this. It settled my stomach. I held on to this Coors Light, and at this point, you have like the biggest climb up this mesa. And there's people literally like waiting for someone to drop off water because there wasn't water in the one water station that we had. And they didn't want to go up this hill. They wanted to drop before this, it's not a hill, this mesa. Um, and it gave me enough of just like feeling a little bit better. And I started to quote things. I started to like just say David Goggins quotes. And my husband thought I was going senile. He's like, this is not good. Like, we're probably going to have to take you somewhere because he thought that I've lost my mind. Um, so I see this hell and I'm like just quoting these things from David Goggins and The Rock. And I'm like, hold my beer, literally.
That's so funny.
And I'm like, I'm just getting up this thing as quickly as possible. And I'm not necessarily like a strong hill person, but I had the leg strength for it. And I get up there and it's an aid station. And at this point, I've been chasing cutoff like all day. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to make this. I'm going to get pulled. So I ask them, I'm like, is there a way that I'm going to make? Because the only hard cutoff was at like 40 miles. And then they let you finish as whenever the hundreds finish, which I learned I was so far behind. I was the last person to finish that 100K that they thought I was a 100 miler. And he's like, no, no, you can finish this. I'm like, is it worse than this? Like, does it get worse than this? He's like, no, you got through the worst part. There was bad parts after that, but I was so elated. I'm like, well, I'm gonna make this. And I started running down the hill, and a mile down, I'm like, oh no, I forgot my headlamps. So I had to get my husband to go run get our headlamps. But that race was just so challenging in most of the different parts that I was not prepared for. We're climbing over boulders. Fell off a boulder. I strained my calf at like 55. I really couldn't eat anything, but there was a lot of hallucinations that had happened. I had never navigated so well in my life because you're just following pink flags. And when I finally finished that race, and it was funny, there was a 5 mile loop. And before that loop, there's an aid station, and I'm like filling up, and my husband's filling up his stuff. And he asks, he's like, okay, well, what's next? And she's like, well, you're going to just go do a 5 mile loop. And he's like, 5 miles. I'm like, don't, no. Don't. I'm like, I don't care. I'm not complaining. I'm like, okay, roger that. And I just start going. I leave them because I'm like, I can't think about all those things. Like, this sucks and I'm just in hell and I have to keep going. I've never pushed so hard in my entire life. And that was at that point the hardest thing I had ever done. And when I finished, I I didn't know who was out there. I did not recognize, I can't navigate on a road with a map. And to be able to like know where to go, and I think it comes down to that level, like I had said before, where you're so exhausted, there's nothing holding you back. I was literally in fight or flight mode. My body probably thought I was dying. So it's like, hey, you're in the middle of nowhere. You have a headlamp. There's animals out there that you don't like, all of these things. Just survive, just survive. I was grabbing like roots that had um needles on it. There was like, you could look down and there's nothing. So in any realm, you could be very afraid, but I was just so focused on just moving forward. I didn't sleep for like a day and a half after because I had so much adrenaline from that, so much that my body wouldn't come down from it. So I would say that was probably the most transformative because I was signed up for Kettle 100K, and after that, I'm like, I'm gonna up it to 100. And then
So
it went from there. But yeah, that was a huge one because I did not belong in that race. I was not prepared. I was not trained like I should have. I was very ignorant to just what out west running is. It's not Midwest. And then I did Kettle 100, which was far worse than Zion. Far worse in Wisconsin, but that one shifted everything for me because it gave me the confidence to like just try. Like, I probably should have failed on paper for sure. And if they had a strict 100K cutoff, like, yeah, I would have been pulled. But I met the ones that were strict and I was able to finish. But yeah, when I crossed the finish line, it was the most anticlimactic thing ever because nobody was around. A volunteer came up and he's like, "Oh, you're like one of the first 100 milers." And I'm like, "I'm 100K." And he's like, "Oh, well, that's impressive too. The medals are over there." And it's like across the parking lot. I'm like, I'm not walking to get that. Do you have a chair?
husband.
Anything? So like just sat down and cried. Just like, I can't believe I finished. Um, but yeah, there was nothing, no one there to clap for you because it was just my husband running me in. So not what you would expect after like doing the hardest thing you ever did to have like, and not that I was running for fanfare, but it was just like so anticlimactic. You couldn't even really see the finish line because it was so dark and nobody was around.
I know that feeling. It's when you said you were not prepared, then I was kind of going back and looking at myself because that's what happened. Like I thought I knew heels, but boy, I was so wrong. I,
Mhm.
now I know how heels look like. So that's what I'm gonna be training for next. So it's like, but that's a inspiring story because we don't know how we can do unless we try. I think
Mhm.
that's been one of the factors is we are so afraid to try this thing. We keep holding ourselves back, and I'm glad that you went and you did that and you found yourself. You found that how badass you are. You were able to navigate that. Zion is a beautiful place to run, and I'm glad you've finished it. And I know that's been just a start for you because you after that you've done so many other ultra marathons as well. And I know there was a ultra marathon you did after we scheduled the podcast that you DNF'd. One was it?
So that was Kettle 100K. So Kettle 100 was my first attempt at 100, and I was signed up originally for the 100K. And then because I finished Zion, I'm like, well, why would I go do another 100K? Well, I ended up at the 100K. And everyone told me like, well, if you do Zion, like Kettle's going to feel so easy because it's Midwest. Oh no, I don't think people like really recognize that Wisconsin, particularly the Kettle Moraine, it's a different animal, and there's people that come from out west that DNF that race. It's a very highly DNF'd race on a good year. That race was 100 degrees when it started, or 90. I'd have to go back. And my watch and weather app said it was at 100% humidity because it had rained up until that race. And the way that the course is, because it is beautiful, and I apparently love pain because I keep going back to this race, and it's hard. It's a very, very challenging course, but it doesn't necessarily like you're thinking Wisconsin. So the kettles, the way that the forest is, and then the bottom, it just holds heat. So I remember coming in to, it was like mile 19, and you couldn't see the aid station because there was so much steam coming up that even like crew that was out there like helping us, so like it looked like something out of a movie because just the steam of just such a hot day and all the moisture coming up from the ground. My feet were destroyed. Man, it's probably 19 miles in already. My electrolytes were completely off. I was trying to eat as much as I could. But that one was it was worse than Zion because it was a humid heat, and I started to hallucinate a little bit during the race. It got worse later. My feet were destroyed, and I made a mistake. I kept continued to lube it, not knowing that you're supposed to like dry them out. Um, so I got to about mile 40, and I knew I'm like, there's no way that I'm gonna finish this 100. I'm in such a bad state. And those races, Kettle particularly, you can take the 100K if you get to the 100K and not go back out. I was already 2 hours. I knew I was going to be at least an hour behind what the cutoff was to get back out to do the last loop. I had put my hiking poles in my pack at Nordic, which was like the 100K, not thinking that I'd probably need them earlier. So I would say I don't know if the like what mistakes were made. It was just a brutal, brutal day. Anyone that I started to like talk to around me, the next time we get to an aid station, they're gone because they're dropping. So that was like a hard mentally too, is knowing like each aid station, like you're losing your trail buddy that you're like having a conversation with. And it was never enticing to drop. It was just more so like mentally, oh my gosh. And some of these folks I knew were stronger runners than me, and they're gone. Like, if they just drop, how am I gonna do this? So I remember texting the woman that was coming out to pace me at like 40. I'm like, look, I'm being realistic here. My goal is I just want the 100K. I really just want to make it to the 100K because people weren't making it. People weren't making it to 50. People weren't making it to 40. Like 50K mark. There was a lot of people that were trying. It was a very, very, very bad day. Carl Meltzer came to win it, and Speed Goat wearing his shoes, and he had dropped at the 100K because it was the man had time to finish it, but. It was that bad. I, man, at about 50, it started to get dark, and there was a woman from like the aid station. She knew I was in a really bad spot. I couldn't keep moving. I was so depleted. And so she's like, call your husband, get your pacer out here a little early to like, because it's not safe for you to be out here. So she came out, paced me for like the last 13 miles to when I got to Nordic. And I just sat in that chair and I'm like, I've never been so happy to be done with something. And at that point, you had to get there at like 18 hours. I think I was 22 hours. It was that far behind cutoff. I mean, knowing Michelle, I probably could have, like, if I was in a good state, begged her to go back out. But sometimes you just know. But so when I went back this year, I'm like, well, I'll just do the 100K like legitimately, not unofficial. And I've done the 100K unofficial. And then the next year, I was signed up for the 100. Oh, no, the next year I had COVID, so I didn't do it. So I volunteered. The year after that, I was signed up for the 100 again. And literally 10 days after I had signed up for the 100, found out I was pregnant. Like, I'm not gonna be able to do this race pregnant. So the race director, Michelle, let me drop down to the 50K. So I did the 50K pregnant with my daughter, and that was great. And then the year after that, I did the fun run. So at this juncture, I've done every distance but the 100. But this year, I ended up with food poisoning. And so it was like 6 miles in, I'm like, oh, man, I don't feel good. And I called my husband like at 13 and I'm like, I don't know what's going to go on here. Like, I'm so sick. And he's like, well, if it makes you feel better, I'm sick. So my poor husband also has food poisoning. He's trying to crew with my daughter, like bringing her into the like public bathrooms because he's so sick. I'm literally like, I had nothing on me. So I'm like at aid stations asking for like toilet paper and bags because you got to like pack things in, pack things out. And I had a friend come up to crew. I'm like, this is literally a shit show. Literally. But each aid station, I knew so many people at this course. Each aid station, I'd come in crying because I'm like, I want to feel like myself again after having my daughter. I want to feel like a badass still. And I'm going to DNF this thing. And I mean, I was ready to drop at 13 because I was so sick. And they just kept pushing me out. They're like, just try to make it to the next one. Just try to make it to the next one. And I made it to Natalie's aid station and she sat down with me and she goes, look, any way that you make it, any distance. She's like, that's great. So you have to stop thinking about the 100K right now. That's basically what it means to be back and what it means to still be a badass after having a baby. She's like, whatever distance, this is your journey. She's like, just keep trying to go as far as you can. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stop then with whatever, just feeling so upset. Because I knew, because each aid station I came in, like, I was already behind time. I knew that at some point, it just wasn't gonna happen. Unless some miracle happened and I was able to sprint. I had in my head, I'm like, I just want to make it to Scup. And Scup is like this loop, and I forgot from my 100. I mentally blocked it out because it's so bad. For me at least, because it's very roady, it's very technical, there's a lot of hills. So if you're in a bad spot and
Don't
it's
do it.
like a 5 mile lollipop, there's nobody out there. So I get to the aid station before that and I'm like, okay, I'm good. They're like, we're closing the aid station in a half hour. I'm like, well, I can't run 5 miles in a half hour, even on a good day. So I'm like, there's no way I'm making this. So I'm just like, I should just be like happy with this 30 miles. And then I was like, well, no, I'm not quitting. I'm going to be pulled from this course. I'm not going to quit until somebody pulls me because I'm not going to quit. So I got up and I went out and I'm like, this is just so stupid.
Yeah.
And like, it's on a campground. So I saw like kids playing and I'm like, I should be doing that. And then I'm like bawling, and some guy that's just out on a casual run is like coming up. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. didn't know there was anyone out here. And I'm talking to myself and I'm just like, I'm having a moment and I'm trying to stay ahead of the sweepers because they told me they're like, "Hey, you've got a half hour head start, but if the sweepers catch you, that's it." And so I was about a mile, maybe not even a mile, from making it back to that aid station. They're like, "Oh, we'll leave things out here." So as long as I could stay ahead of them, I could keep going. But they had caught me. And I'm not gonna lie, I was very happy to see them. I was trying really hard to stay ahead of them, but at that juncture, I was very, very proud of the 35 miles. I was in good spirits. We were all laughing, and the one pacer sweeper is like, they told me that there was someone out there still. He's like, what? Because I mean, I knew I was gonna get pulled. Like I knew that my race was already over, and to just go another 5 miles, just because for nothing. I knew I wasn't getting anything from it, but that race actually was one of the best things that could have happened to me because I realized, well, no, like I can still do really hard things. Like, so now I'm not afraid to like throw myself into more races. So on Friday, I'm going to try 100.
Hmm.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm not afraid to fail at it. I'd love to finish it, but I know I can go 35 miles with food poisoning, hoping that's not going to be the issue. Do I feel ready for it? No. But I'm sure it's gonna take me a couple years to come back. I was not prepared how long it was gonna take me to come back after having my daughter. She's gonna be 2 this year. I thought I'd have a couple hundreds under my belt already, but coming back after having a baby, not easy.
Yeah, it's a hard thing. It's
It's very hard.
you just yeah, you just give a birth to a baby, and that's it takes a lot of time. So, but it's commendable that you did, and you 35 mile is also not a joke. It's a tough thing on food poisoning. That means yeah, 100 is done.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, and I mean, it sucks to, like, do something so hard and not have anything, like and that was my second big race, so I DNF'd my first 100 attempt back. I knew I wasn't ready, and I suffered with extreme electrolyte imbalances. I couldn't figure out how to I was still nursing my daughter, so I did a 50K nursing her. I did a 38-mile nursing her along the way, and I hadn't figured out, like, how to do these long runs with fueling appropriately. So fueling was already a struggle for me for years, trying to figure out my electrolytes, my carbs, all of this, because when it gets hot, I don't want to eat. And I'm forcing myself, and my stomach always goes south. It is what it is. It happens in every race. But now to have the element where nursing takes so much out of you, and I'm trying to run 100 miles.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't give myself enough credit for the 50 Ks I did nursing her along the way, but the 100 miler was so hot and I just could not get in enough electrolytes to juggle everything. And I know some people are like, well, just stop nursing her during. It does not work like that. It doesn't, because then I packed pumps and like there's a whole different level of coordination. Like you have to find a way to like get rid of this stuff, otherwise you're in severe pain. Um, and I made it to 35 there, and that was it. That was the end of my race. So mentally, it's been a little bit harder coming back because I'm like on this DNF streak after having my daughter. But I'm trying to find joy in it now. I'm trying to look at it very differently of, hey, this is for me. Like however long it takes to come back. And it's not a coming back thing. It's you're completely different. You're just completely different. It's like being a completely new athlete and having to start over. So that's how I'm kind of treating it.
Yeah, and it's a different body. Your
Mhm,
body is not same, and a lot of things have changed. And I mean, you're coming back and running. That's a huge thing. And
mhm,
yeah, kudos to you coming out and running. It's not easy, and doing thing while pregnant, while nursing. That's a different level. That's even harder. And what is your opinion on? I know I talked to Esther about this, and she was very vocal about this kind of things. When you go and see all these ultramarathons that you see do, all these events, there is still a not a lot of facilities for women and moms, especially, right? So, in your opinion, what should be changed so that it is more inclusive.
Mhm.
Because you went and you did it, but there are so many other moms, they have the same concerns in their head, like, I cannot nurse my baby, I can do this. So
Mhm.
what do you think, what can be done so that everybody is included
Wow.
in this race?
I would say that it starts even before you have your baby. It's crazy that the year I deferred the Chicago Marathon was like one of the first years that they had a pregnancy deferral option. So we're talking all these races, the entire community that never even recognized like, hey, deferral option, you're pregnant. And some women, yes, I recognize I ran through it. I had to defer my Chicago Marathon because I literally gave birth days before it. So, and if you look at some of these big races, just women before even being pregnant or just being women, I know like Hard Rock just finally put into place like a deferral policy. So, and a lot of us are for the Chicago Marathon, you got to pay again. So I think they recently changed it. I didn't have to pay. My husband was able to deferral based on my pregnancy as a support partner, but he had to pay again. And knowing the course of the Chicago Marathon, I'm like, there's no way I could nurse my child at a road race whatsoever. Like, there's
Um,
so many people. There's not true aid stations. It's just cups and things like that. I would say the ultra community, at least there's aid stations where you could sit down with a chair. I know that there's an organization called Trail Sisters that has done a lot of great advocacy on just women in races. And but it's still there's still so much to be done. I think having different time domains would be extremely helpful. That's why I picked the 100 that I did for my first one back, because it was 36 hours and it gave me time, but there was no way I could nurse and do a 30-hour time cutoff. So I would say just recognizing that there's more moms in the sport. And I think women have been kind of disadvantaged in ultra running as it is. Like if you look at some of these big ones, there's more men at Western States, there's more men at Hard Rock, which is interesting because studies have shown that women are actually better ultra runners. We just it's probably the why we carry babies. We just have a higher pain tolerance. And
yeah.
so why is there not a push for these lotteries to be like, okay, well, the field is going to be 50-50? And I would say, too, going back to like the moms and the nursing, I've heard some folks like, hey, is there anything that can be done with these races where you can have help where if there's a single mom with kids, they can like link up with someone that watched their kid during these races. I think more women need to just stand up and like I don't want to say demand, but like ask for these things. And I think it comes down to the race directors. Honestly, the races that I've been coming back to are Ordinary Mule and then 10 Drunk Miles. And really it's because those race directors are just inclusive people where, for example, cattle, I was pregnant. I asked Michelle if I could switch the distance, no questions asked. Um, I knew that if something were to go south and I needed someone out there with me while I was pregnant, I could ask and there would be no, if, ands, or buts. And there was a woman that was so nice. She was a labor delivery nurse. She did the whole 50K with me. I was in the best spot that I could ever be running pregnant. So that community is just very inclusive. And then Scott Krumer's community is also very inclusive. Do they have tents set up? No, but I've been the only person, I think, in both of those races that have done that. So I never asked for any sort of special accommodation, but I would almost guarantee that if I would have in those races, that I probably would have gotten it. So I think we need to be better at asking, but also too, I think it really comes down to just the race directors recognizing like, hey, this is a different demographic in our community. Like, what can we do to make things a little bit more comfortable or more inclusive for them to be able to do it? And I think honestly, time for me, I'm not a fast runner, so time domain would have been most helpful. Probably still, just because, and it's only fault of my own. My husband cruised with my daughter, and the reason I did the Badger 100K is there was a 33-hour time cutoff. So I knew I could hang out with my daughter at aid stations. And it's super inclusive being able to like play with her for 15 minutes and then be on my merry way. I couldn't do that at a normal 100K. I wouldn't be able to. And not that that's what every woman wants to do, because some are way more competitive than I. And like Stephanie Chase, like, great. She can do that. She can nurse. She can finish 100K and win it. She can do hard rock, but I'm not at that level.
Yes, definitely. I think we need to think about it and have everybody some sort of way just to either look at the parents, just look at the babies while
Hmm.
the moms are running or something like that. So in that note, right? So if some moms are listening to you right now,
Hmm.
because I'm sure there are some who want to get into ultras, but like, but they're moms, right? So dad has kind of little bit of leniency in this kind of things because they can do things, and mom has to look at the kid. So, what would be that one message for them in in an encouraging way for them to try these things?
Yeah, I would say the thing that I've learned the most, and I'll say from pregnancy to postpartum, and I would say as hard as my pregnancy was, postpartum was a completely different mind shift for me. It was harder for me because I thought it was going to feel easy. I was going to take off this weight vest that I've been carrying, and I was going to be weightless, and I'll just be able to run. And I'd never had a baby before. I didn't know how much this took out of your body. Is to give yourself grace. That is one thing that I've learned is the best you can do is the best you can do, and that's the best that you should do. And to be able to be really flexible and not get upset. I was definitely someone that was very, very structured in everything of like, I can't miss this training run. I have to do 10 miles at this. Sometimes I'm doing a stroller run and my daughter will only let me do 3. Or
Mhm.
I've had to use Elmo. Like, I'm someone that's like, don't use screens. I'm using screens. I've been doing a lot of treadmill miles, and which is not necessarily the easiest thing to like transfer. Like, I haven't even run a step on this course that I'm going to be doing on Friday. That's not ideal, but I haven't had the time to go out there. But it is what it is. So I would say that look at it as a journey and just be encouraged in anything you can do. Still set big goals. Don't put yourself on the back burner because I think it's important for moms, especially for mental health, that you still keep some autonomy in the sense of I have these goals and I'm going to do whatever I can to meet them, but have flexibility on what that's going to look like to achieve or how long it takes to achieve those goals. So for me, I remember I was doing everything. I had a chiropractor, I had a pelvic floor therapist, and I asked her, I'm like, can I do 100 in like a year? And she wasn't even a runner. She's like, yeah, I'm sure that should be no problem because you've done them before. But didn't recognize like that I was going to be dealing with all of these things that I had to overcome. Pelvic floor dysfunction, nursing while trying to do this. So after trying these things and recognizing like this isn't healthy, I stopped putting a timeline on it where it's like, hey, I have this goal. I would like to run 100 again. When it happens, it happens. And I'm just going to do the best I can with the time that I have. Also, don't let it take away from your joy. And that I think is hard. If training is getting to the point where it's taken away from your joy of being a mom, like reevaluate the plan. Maybe don't do 100K in 2 months. Maybe it's a 2-year goal. And that's okay. No one's ever going to judge you for it. Still keep trying to chase your big goals, but don't stress on the execution of it. Like the best you can do is the best you can do sometimes. And honestly, you'll probably show up. Maybe some are, great. They've got a method. Baby sleeps and they can knock their goals off sooner. But if that's not the case, that's okay.
Definitely, that's a good message. And so there are a few things left. I think the next question I usually ask to everybody too. So it goes like this: why do you run?
Man, sanity, for my sanity. I've always like it kind of goes back to, childhood. And it was just my way of escaping and feeling alive. I know that sounds really weird, but there's just something. Some runs are great, some runs are not. Some you feel like you can run forever and you're just having a great time and you feel good. But the after usually, it's usually like how you feel after these things of just that sense of accomplishment, the runner's high that you get and just feeling alive and at peace. I run for my peace. I run for peace. Um, it yeah. These big things that I chase are great, right? They don't always feel good. But just like the run day to day, if I couldn't run hundreds anymore, like I'd be fine as long as I could keep running. I don't know the day it would suck if I couldn't run for sure, but I'm sure I'd find something else. But I think it comes down to a very biological level, foundationally. Humans are meant to run. We're meant to run. I mean, we sit at desks all the time, but if you look back before industrialization and all these things, like kids, you don't have to tell a kid to run. They want to run. They just want to run. And I think that's embedded. And I think doing that on a daily basis is like you're going down to what you're meant to be doing, which is running. It doesn't have to be far. It doesn't have to be long. It should be sprinting, but get some blood flowing and it just, you feel better. And I just feel better when I'm running in all aspects. My life is just better when I'm running.
It will make sense. I can relate to that. So the next section is rapid fire. So I'm just gonna ask you bunch of random questions. So whatever things comes to your head
Boy.
first.
Okay.
Okay. Coffee or gels before a race.
Coffee.
Go to guilty pleasure post race meal.
Ooh, that changes every race. Sometimes it's a deep dish pizza, other times it's a big burger.
Yep, both are good. More painful, blisters between your toes or chafing in the wrong spot.
Blisters.
What's worse during a race? Forgetting your headlamp batteries or forgetting your snacks?
Ooh, I'm gonna go headlamp.
Pacers, are they lifesavers or overrated?
No, they're lifesavers.
If ultras were banned tomorrow, what crazy thing would you sign up for instead?
I would do an Ironman.
Oh. Which is tougher, running 100 miles or dealing with a toddler for you?
Ooh, man, probably the toddler.
Three words that best describes you at mile 90 of a 100 miler.
3 words at mile 90.
Mhm.
Giddy, gritty, and probably, oh man, third word, quiet. I don't know.
I was not quiet. I was when I was doing that hill. That was the like 14% graded. That was the toughest hill I've ever seen. I said, "This is bullshit."
See, when I'm in pain, like I shut up. I don't say anything. But man, when I was told my first 100 that I finished at when there was 9 miles left, that we were in single digits by the woman running the aid station, my pacer looked at me, she's like, "Don't start crying," because that's what I wanted to do because I was so happy. But I was in there was hills, they weren't bad, but it's like 97 up this hill, and I'm like, "This sucks." But I was just so in so much pain I wasn't talking, but I was so happy because I knew I was gonna be done and just giddy, but didn't really have the capacity to, like, actually smile because I was so tired.
I was not happy.
I
That was hard. I've never seen 14% graded hill in my life. So I ran at 5. six most, but yeah. So
Well,
the
I'm prepared for your
and
next one.
yeah, I we don't have 14% graded hill in Berlin, so
Treadmill.
I don't know where. Yeah, I don't know where will I find it. I have to see. No, next one I'm doing flat. So the the bracket I'm doing,
Mhm.
it doesn't have a lot of. It will never be 1,000. Even if I do 80,
Okay.
it's never gonna be 1,000 meters. So
So one thing to
yeah,
prepare with the flat, though, can sometimes hurt more than the hills because you're using the same muscle groups the entire time. So definitely take some time to like stretch in between some of the laps because, yeah, your hip flexors can get a little sticky.
there is a little bit of downhill on one section. That's what I used to do hill training,
Okay.
but there are hills, but not like
Gotcha.
150 meters of like that will kill me.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the final question I ask everybody. And the question is, I would like you to please finish the sentence for me. Running has changed my life because
It has made me realize how strong I am.
that is true. You are strong. You ran nursing your baby and you finished ultra, so that is badass.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for your time. And I know it's early morning in US, and I always talk to US folks, and this is the right time to talk to everybody. So yeah, thank you so much for the time, and I'm looking forward to your post. What happens on Friday? And good luck. I
Thank
hope we
you.
smash it.
I appreciate it.
And I'll see you next time. And when you have more stories to hear, and then we can talk about it and see how it goes. So there will be a lot of fun stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Hey everyone, thank you for making it to the end of the podcast. I hope you really enjoyed this conversation. I'll see you again next time with another guest. Until then, happy running.